anyone having nuclear weapons will just say to the world, you know, guys, if I'm not satisfied with what you want to do or say or whatever, we just strike somewhere. So what it will be, what the world will turn into.
Many people in the world think that this war in Ukraine is basically a proxy war between America and Russia. Do you think Maidan
cannot
has something to do with America affiliation?
Okay, let us put it this way. One second. A guy comes to a girl and say, I love you, and hit her face. They say, oh, I love you, dear, and hit her like face. And then he beaten her half death, and then sitting there in front of her say, I love you so much, marry me. Do you think this lady will react adequately to that? That's what we feel. How you can beaten us to death and then say we are the same nation, love you, we love Ukrainians.
Any thoughts on Elon Musk and his behavior during this time?
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode. The war in Ukraine has now continued for nearly 8 months. This week, a few very alarming developments have happened. How worried should we be for the sake of the citizens of Ukraine, for the sake of the citizens of Russia, and for the sake of the citizens of this entire world? What factors can bring an end to this war, and what are the ground realities? To talk more on this, we have with us today a very distinguished guest, His Excellency Dr. Vasyl Hamianin, who is Ukraine's ambassador to Indonesia, where the G20 summit is about to happen next month.
Ambassador Vasyl Hamianin, a great delight to have you on my show again, maybe nearly after 5 months. A lot of things have happened in between, and it would be wonderful to know it firsthand from you. Thanks for making the time, and a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
My pleasure too. My first question is something that has baffled the whole world. That is, how could Ukraine stand up to a superpower like Russia, where they thought that they can take it over in 3 to 7 days, and you have managed to regain back territories, defended a large part of your own, and now Russia is forced to conscript people, conscript their citizens, where they cannot really justify calling it a special military operation. What factors made it possible? Was it something very special about Ukraine that made it possible, which people thought was impossible?
It's a good question. If you remember our previous conversation, and then if you remember, maybe you've read perhaps some interviews I gave in early March, and I didn't change my view on the end game of this process. To put it simply, if you can imagine the house of ants, colony of ants, or bees, beehive, you will understand what's going on in Ukraine. Basically, like the model is the same. The guys and the girls, they are working hard, having fun, you know, flying to the flowers and back, having children, like protecting the house and all that. Everybody's like busy, and they look nice, and I mean bees look nice and funny and all that, you know, like hairy and beautiful and pretty and funny, right, and small. But then if the hive is attacked by anyone, any sort of invader like a bear or a man, then you'll see the reaction of the bees, right? The vast majority of them is ready to die while biting and it's not biting, it's like yeah, stinging the enemy, and they sting and die. But then normally, usually they succeed. So the big bear or the big human being retreat. Yeah. Unless they use like something very, very specific to kill them all, this is the only way you can like possess the property of the bees. So when you fight for something which is right, which is yours, which is sacred for you, for your land, for your people, this will not leave the chance. You know, it's not. It sounds pathetic, but it's not, to be honest. And
so wonderfully put, Vasyl. It's so wonderfully put. It's
It just
actually
came to my mind. Sorry, I didn't know the
very
question. So
touching. It's very touching. I mean, I have not heard this. I don't know whether you have said it before. I have not heard this from any other person from Ukraine. It's a wonderful way of putting it. But I'll still have to ask you this. This
yes.
week, Russia has upped the aggression to a large extent with drone attacks on Kyiv and with energy infrastructure targeting water supplies. And they have also done a referendum for 4 different territories. Do you think this is a turning point in the war? And do you think this can also be contained for too long?
I think the only one turning point I can mention is when Russians were defeated near Kyiv in March, and they retreated to the east. After that, we started to discover what terrible crimes they committed in the occupied territories, and this was the turning point of no return. If anyone thinks that something changed for us, no, not much changed.
What about the strikes this week? This week, the drone strikes and now the missile strikes have just started escalating, isn't it?
You can call this an escalation, but I mean, okay, they launched dozens of drones, right, on Ukraine, on the critical infrastructure. But don't forget the figure of 4,000 missiles already hit Ukrainian territory during this time. So I don't know if it is an escalation, just change of tools, change of instruments they used, because I think they're running out of missiles. 4,000 missiles, right? On Aleppo, we had like 100 plus, and we have 4,000. Now they're targeting at concrete, like energy supply and everything. So, well, the nature of the attacks changed, because with the approach of the winter, they want to use another terrorist approach that we will freeze you to death. We will leave you without electricity and without what? Without heating, without everything. Okay, Ukrainians started to buy warm blankets and started to buy these gasoline lamps and small ovens and stoves with working on wood or on coal or on anything. It's it. That's what changed really. And we're learning very fast how to shoot down the drones. So this will be the success. Next day after the bombardment of Kyiv 2 weeks ago, you know this. You remember this playground in the center? Like,
yeah.
Yes, was destroyed by this. You know what? Next day, the kids are playing in this pit and giving interviews to the foreign correspondents, telling what they feel, and like you play every day in this background. Kids like 7 years old, and telling things that not every grown up will be able to say. And then 2 days, and we have the in the internet you can see the designers have designed what would they do of this pit afterwards. So turn it into very special playground, special attraction for amazing.
It's amazing to hear this. I'll still ask you this. Do you think the threat of a nuclear strike or a nuclear war is real? And as Putin is getting pushed more and more into a corner and losing face, and even as an accident, do you think it is a real threat to the world?
You know what? Chinese people have a very nice saying, or I maybe rephrase it somehow, but it's like, the one who knows doesn't talk. The one who talks doesn't know. Meaning that, first, whatever they say, just watch it from the first days of war. Whatever they say is either lies or the dreams. It never fits into the reality. For example,
they're changing their constitution for a first strike? Do you think Russia is changing their constitution for a first strike to give them powers to do that? And that could be a message to the world?
Changing the constitution?
To make them capable of doing a first strike?
You see, again, they can say anything and do anything, but again, another quotation: the empty bucket sounds big, sounds loud. If you really have these things in mind, you will communicate, calmly and below the radars with the respective side and say, guys, we are ready for a strike. Don't do stupid things, or let's sit down, whatever. They're just shouting it every day in the media everywhere, and they have a result. And half of the world is like shivering with fear and all. Like, if the strikes take place, it will be the end of the world.
So don't you think he would be
basically,
more desperate if he loses? He'd be more desperate to go down fighting and do something suicidal like that.
okay, I'm trying to get closer to this answer, but you know what? This will be the end of the world, and not even Chinese, who turning blind eye to what it does. Not even Iranians or North Koreans would love this. No one would love this, to be like in a nuclear winter forever, right? So just imagine he is like desperate and all that. First, he wants to live, because otherwise he will not be preparing these long tables. He will not be preparing the quarantine for kids before meeting him for 10 days and all this stuff. He's afraid to die. He doesn't want to die, obviously. Second, even if you imagine that he is crazy, like desperate and all, not everyone there who is in charge of pressing the buttons and launching and all that, not everyone is that crazy. Third, it's a long chain, and if you imagine how many people are involved, if they really want to die, and if they wish the kids dead and destroyed and all that, okay, they can do it. But I can't imagine. I mean, one can be crazy, but craziness, like madness, is not a virus. Not like if you are mad, one man is mad, not all the rest of them are mad. Fourth, strategic nuclear warheads. It's not easy to. It's not like a drone, right? It rests in the well, and when it's launched, it has been how to say, well, you're going to change the direction. If it was targeted to like London or Washington, it is targeted for London and Washington. It cannot be targeted to Zaporizhia or Kherson, right? As for tactical weapons, I think that Putin was warned very seriously. If you use the tactical nuclear weapons, which is, it will cause bad destruction if used, but it will not destroy the country. It will not be able to destroy the whole country, right? And moreover, it will not be able to destroy the army of Ukraine, because it's not concentrated on a town, right? Or the whole army. No, it's somewhere and everywhere, right? You can destroy the city like Hiroshima, you can, but you will not be able to destroy the army. And after the nuclear strike, he was warned that, well, after that, if you dare, now, I mean, your army will be finished within days, because ATACMS, because F-16, whatever it is, I don't know the nomenclature of this, but it will be the big bad strikes, it will be just destroyed, everything. So he will be without the army. Black Sea Fleet, Baltic Fleet, maybe Pacific Fleet, and all other fleets will be just destroyed in no time, because he's so much behind in technologies to prevent it. Does he want this? Don't think so. Fourth, all the warheads, nuclear warheads, are not now on the, physically on the missiles. They are stored in special storages, which are well known to everyone in intelligence. So if any movement starts from these storages, people will know in advance, like in minutes, and they will send the warning. So you do it or not, and maybe it will be a preventive strike, something like that.
I think it's very far-fetched. It can't happen so easily, and it's too far-fetched for us to worry about. That's very interesting to know, because this has been a buzz going on all around the world. And
You know why? You know why? If we now say that we are afraid of that and we do anything to stop, to prevent the nuclear strike, all this will be repeated many times. I mean, anyone having nuclear weapons will just say to the world, you know, guys, if I'm not satisfied with what you want to do or say or whatever, we just strike somewhere. So what it will be, what the world will turn into. If we make it happen, this will be the end, definitely, because now we have the one guy threatening the world. If we let them do what he wants, it will be tens of guys, because a lot of people have the nuclear weapons actually. And who knows what will happen tomorrow, you know? It just, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't sign agreements with terrorists. Otherwise, the terrorists will repeat and repeat and repeat it again. And this will be the much more complicated to stop. That's it.
very, very valid point. I'll ask you something. This war cannot end militarily. It has to finally end through negotiations. And next month, there's the G20 summit happening in Indonesia, where the Indonesian president has invited President Zelensky to come. Do you think President Zelensky and Vladimir Putin could come face to face next month, and any kind of talks that are positive outcomes can happen through that?
Okay, this war will only end militarily, only the way, oh no, sorry, two options. Putin withdraws all the troops from Ukraine. The other option, they all die in Ukraine or just run back to Russia. No other options.
You think there can be no case of talks where there are certain agreements by Russia on and agreements by Ukraine that that can tally, that can stop?
Not possible. Not possible.
Why do you think so? Why do you think so?
It's not already, it's not thinking, right? It's knowledge. It's knowledge with very firm knowledge of what is going on. It's not my ideas or my hopes or something.
Tell me what factors, tell the audience what factors make you think that.
Okay, of course I will. Yeah. So someone very clever and wise said recently that if Putin stopped the war, this will be the end of war. If Ukraine stops the war, this will be the end of Ukraine, to put it this way, basically. So it means that we will negotiate with Russian Federation only on our conditions, which will definitely not include the recognition of the occupied territories, of the annexed, like Kherson and Crimea and Donbass and all that.
So you want Crimea back as well? I mean, or the
of course, this is
February
no questions on that.
The territories on February 24th, is that what you want back, or you want Crimea as well? And the
this time has gone. This could be discussed in March, maybe on April. But when we all the time permanently talking about the negotiations and the possibilities of discussing the borders before the full-scale aggression, blah blah blah, they ignored it, and they went on shelling, bombing, and then, despite all the warnings, they approved this annexation, and despite every logics and every human way of thinking, they started to destroy our infrastructure and all. How can you negotiate with the guys who commit these crimes all the time, non-stop? It's not that they made a pause of 2 months and say, well, you have the, it's every day shelling, bombing, torturing, killing, and all this stuff. Every village liberated, every village, every town, mass graves, people tortured, raped, killed.
So is it not happening next month, the face-to-face
no,
with
not possible. No way for this. And I think that everyone who is still talking about peace, negotiations, about diplomacy, diplomatic ways, should be pretty clear. Whom are we talking about? right? So if you talk about peace negotiations, you must have the plan, you must have the essence, the basis for negotiations. We all can talk sugar, sugar, honey, honey, but it will not become sweet in my mouth. After when I repeat peace negotiations 1,000 times, it will not just become a peace negotiations because there is no basis for this.
Sorry, don't you think it's also in Russia's interest to stop the war, and it's bleeding them as well, and maybe they also want to come to the table to bring an end to it?
Can you tell me what makes you think like that?
Well,
Maybe
there
they
has been
stopped killing
statements
people?
from Russia where they said that they were very close to negotiating with Ukraine just before the war, which was foiled by the US. I do not know what happened, but this was a statement that came out from Russia.
Can you repeat or quote any statement from Russia which is not lies? Which is true and frank. I cannot remember such things. They're just lying all the time, and I mean, not a single like saying from the official Moscow that will be true, that will reflect true intentions. Okay, let us put it this way. One second. A guy comes to a girl and say, "I love you," and hit her face. And say, "Oh, I love you, dear," and hit her like face. And then he beaten her half death, and then sitting there in front of her say, "I love you so much, marry me." Do you think this lady will react adequately to that? That's what we feel. How you can beaten us to death and then say, we are the same nation, we love you, we love Ukrainians, and we want to talk. Come on. Be realistic.
I fully understand this. I'll still have to ask you, see, Russia has been calling for Ukraine not joining NATO being their only criterion for starting this war and ending this war as well, if that is promised. How far do you think that is true? And is it possible for Ukraine to make that statement and use that as a negotiation to stop this war?
Why should we make any statement at all with this country? Why? What is the point? No, I'm explaining. Before the war, they were like sort of concerned about NATO. Yeah, before the war, they already had NATO countries in the direct vicinity of Russia.
True. And
I mean, if you have the missiles in in Latvia, Litva, it's just miles from St. Petersburg and just a little bit from Moscow. It's direct, like direct strike is possible, right? Then they have Alaska.
Maybe it was one breaking point for Russia as as more and more countries came under NATO and they felt more threatened. And
right.
Do you
see the result? Do you see the result of their concerns? Now, Ukraine is nearly in NATO, Finland, Sweden nearly in NATO, and Georgia and Moldova are very much about being NATO members. So what did they want really? Did they want us to be away from NATO? I don't think so. It looks like they tried to push us, like press us onto NATO. Before the war, just imagine this. Just imagine. Don't believe Russians. They are liars. Just imagine this. Before the war, before 2014, NATO has a special partnership relations with Russia. NATO countries were selling weapons to Russia. We're selling military components to Russia to make it make Russia capable of producing all this sort of missiles and weapons and everything they use now in Ukraine with all the NATO countries' supplies, right? Ukraine didn't have this privilege, right? So Ukraine has not even applied for NATO. Like Ukraine said, yes, we want to be NATO members, but this sounds like I come to you now and say, you know what, I want to marry your daughter, right? She say, okay, so live with this. Because I say, I want to be the member of parliament, or I want to be the student of Gajah Mada University, of Oxford maybe, yeah? They say, okay, fine, just live with this. And then what? You first apply, you bring your documents to the proper place, and then they view your documents, say, okay, your documents are accepted, but you are not. You will have the tasks, you have the tests, exams, and it will take like 20 years. Maybe then we will accept you. So this, we were on the point when we come to the square and say, we want to be Oxford University student. And this meaning what? Is this threat to Russia to the extent that they killed half of our population? I mean, what the hell is going on? This is lies as everything that Russia says. Everything. It just lies. Because before they attacked Ukraine in 2014, everything was fine. No, NATO was very clear that Ukraine will never be accepted to NATO. It was very clear message. Ukraine will never be a member of NATO, full stop. So what made them to do the attack on Crimea and Donbass at that times? Now, please notice one again. Putin himself, when he was asked the question, so now Sweden and Finland are becoming the members of NATO, and you will have huge borderline with Finland, like NATO members. What would you say to this? And he said, oh, we are not concerned about Finland. We're just concerned about Ukraine. So what is the difference? NATO is in Ukraine or NATO in Finland? It's a difference. So are they concerned about NATO? Or maybe they're concerned about Ukraine, right? So it's nothing about NATO. It's nothing about NATO.
But could it could it also be because of the relation Russia had with Ukraine before 2014, and there was some rise that was happening, which was foiled during the Euromaidan protest, and there was a coup, and he had to be removed, and now you have a US sympathizing president, and that is perhaps what Russia thinks is not very fair. And that is because they think that it was basically a militia which brought a coup because that president was favorable to Russia, and hence they annexed Crimea. Do you think that's a valid argument?
Oh, for Russia, yes. Anything can be a valid argument for Russia.
Do you think
Do
you think this is true? Do you think this is a true story, a true way of putting things? That before 2014, Ukraine was more sympathized or tied up with Russia, and that's what brought a conflict with the US. And
no, this is absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Why? Because the what you call coup d'etat, right? What you call the coup? Okay, could be whatever it is. Ukrainian has been doing this through centuries. We don't like the guy. Like being our king or president, kick off, get lost. We choose another one. This was what Ukrainians were about for centuries.
Do you think it was America backed? Do you think that sentiment was backed by America? I
don't think so.
Do you think you cannot something to do with America affiliation?
You know, this you can think about whatever, but you will not. Whatever the America or whoever will do, whatever they do, they will not be able to make millions of people literally come to the streets in winter and confront the armed police and all. You cannot make millions of people to protest as one. If you're going to, to ignite something like it will be in the political level, but not on the the whole nation just protested against this. But please listen. Please listen. It was not against Russia. In 2013, when it started, the protests were not targeted at Russia, were not against Russia, whatever.
It was targeted at the president who was sympathizing with Russia. So in effect,
it's not Russian business. We are electing. We are a democratic country.
He was elected. So, he was democratically elected, isn't it?
Yes, he was democratically elected, but then he became a traitor, and he will be democratically dismissed. This is normal. But you know what?
He was not democratically dismissed. He was not democratically dismissed. He was dismissed through a militia and a coup, isn't it?
No, no, because people came.
It was not
If you
the
want to know,
military that happened.
okay, if you want to know the story about the Maidan, it's separate story. But finally, nobody killed him, nobody imprisoned him. He ran. It was his will. I mean, the people came to the Maidan with the one demand: please punish the policemen who beaten the students or whatever protesters. Now, when they came, they say, no, we are not going to punish anyone. Then people came through the streets and say, okay, you don't want to punish them? Dismiss, like fire the Minister of Interior. And then they say, okay, we will punish the guilty, but I'm not going to dismiss the Minister of Interior. Then more people came to the streets, okay, you don't want to listen to the people? Okay, we want the dismissal of the Prime Minister. I say, okay, I will fire the Minister of Interior, but I will not fire the Prime Minister. Then people say, okay, guy, then you better run, because if you don't listen to the people, we don't want you there. And, don't forget that during this so-called coup, right, more than 100 civilians were killed by the snipers, just on the streets, on the daytime. It's not the civilians, protesters, who killed the militia or police. It was the civilians who were killed. And they were not armed. And he just ran, because he understood that next day or the day after, people will just storm and they will just smash the presidential house, and it will be the end, right? So he ran.
Yeah,
and this time,
attention on who actually fired those snipers, and there is still a gray
I don't know.
on that.
We're still not clear who were the snipers.
So
but I assure you, these guys were definitely not on the side of the people. This is for sure. It could be Russians, it could be traitors, I don't know who, but these people were murderers, and they do not deserve anything good. And you know that after that, if Russia is not occupying Crimea and is not occupying Donbass, it will be fine with Russia. People will still say, okay, Russians, we just communicate with you, everything is okay. But they went bad. They occupied Crimea, they occupied part of Donbass, and then this was the turning points of Ukrainian people turning against Russians. Not the Yanukovych was just a president. We could elect another one, like Poroshenko was a compromising figure too. He was not he was not against Russia, right? He was not against Russia. He was pretty much willing to cooperate and make trade and all that stuff. He's like a businessman. So he was a compromising figure. But after Russia, what after Russia did in Crimea and in Donbass, of course, no one will like Russia. So it's nothing about this. Russia wanted Ukraine. Russia didn't care about Yanukovych, Poroshenko, whatever presidents. He doesn't care about that. Russia wanted Ukraine as a country, as a state. This was the main reason for the whole story, Nothing to do with NATO.
This might be true, but you understand, there is a certain perception all over the world that this started in 2014 because there was an American coup that ousted an elected president in Ukraine who was sympathizing with Russia. I do not know exactly what happened. People on the ground would know, but this is a part of not a story. Certain arguments facilitate this kind of an argument. But what I'll also have to ask you here is something very candid, that many people in the world think that this war in Ukraine is basically a proxy war between America and Russia. And such proxy wars have happened in other places where countries have suffered and the world has turned a blind eye to it. So why should we now support Ukraine? I don't endorse that whataboutery, but I have seen other places which have become victims of proxy war, and the world has turned a blind eye to it. A reflection of that might be 35 countries who abstain from voting against Russia in the UN General Assembly. what do you have to say to that, to those countries? And what do you have to say to this narrative that this is basically, if the world could turn a blind eye to other countries which were proxy wars for Russia and America, this is also one of them. So why should we support Ukraine now? What do you have to say to that?
It's very simple. This war, if you look at this closely, the people who turn a blind eyes, as you say, right? They simply behave like not humans. That's very simple, because we are talking about the humanity, about justice, and who gave the right to Russians to justify the killings, massive bombings? What made them? I mean, they can explain it somehow. Okay, I will go tomorrow to your flat, burn your house, rape your children, kill your dogs, like leave you beaten half to death, and say, you know what? I had a concern. If your son, who is now 1 year old, will grow up, maybe he will be a threat to me. This is stupid and this is rubbish. So people who don't want to be human, who don't want to help, and don't want to understand, we don't need to stand on Ukrainian side. We can do this ourselves. Stay on the human side, on the side of justice and humanity. That's it. You will see. Now, I have a question. Can you give another example? Just give me another example. You say many on the world. Just another one.
Of proxy wars that was
Yes.
well, it will go into a whole new discussions, but
there is no such examples, my dear.
Proxy wars are Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Iraq. So, but
okay,
we can go into a whole new discussion and debate if we go into that. But the whole world believes that, and there are reasons to believe that. And perhaps
there are no reasons to believe that. Sorry, I interrupt you. Sorry. The war in Afghanistan, the war in Syria, the war in Iraq, right? It's nothing in common with the war in Ukraine. Come on.
So this is not a conflict between America and Russia, which is being.
Did you see any American troops on the territory of Ukraine at all? I mean, we have one nation defending ourselves from another nation. What proxy wars? I mean, there was a civil war in Afghanistan, Taliban and non-Taliban, Afghan people. In Syria, they have protesters against the regime of Bashar Assad, like Alawite, non-Alawite Muslim, whatever. But it's civil war. We can say that, well, the attack of Iraq on Kuwait, an occupation of Kuwait, was something like that. Yes, there was something like that, similar, but not Syria, not you don't have, it's not possible. You just give an example of proxy war, which will meet the criteria of.
It was militia backed by the US. The Syrian Libyan war were militia who came on the ground, but they were backed by the US. So
sorry, they were militia. But I'm sorry. So you say, you're telling me that the civil war in Syria, right? So the one part of the population against another part of the population. So basically opposition against the government. And then the American troops were coming and fighting. Yeah, American citizens or American what? Yeah. So you are telling me this. Yeah or no?
Militia was armed and backed by the Americans, which is.
What do you mean backed by Americans? What do you mean by that?
They were armed, they were trained, they were allowed to fight against the Syrian government.
Right. So we'll have the country, civil war in the country, when one part of the of the conflict of the civil war is supported by one country, like America, another part is supported by, like, I don't know, by Russia, for example, or by someone, right?
Yes.
Now, in my country, we are attacked by another country. And yes, we are supported, but not by America. We're supported by civilized world, by the whole civilized world. Look at the UN, even UN voting. I don't like UN, but still. Look at the European countries. I mean, European countries are afraid and they are angry, they are furious. They are helping us all with everything, with the refugees, but not with the troops. And unfortunately, they're not helping us with the substantial amount of weapons, unfortunately. But it's not like backing someone. They are helping us to survive. They are helping us to survive. It's not like in Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine against Western Ukraine, or I don't know, Christians, Orthodox Christians against the Catholic Christians. No, we were attacked by Russia. All our territory, all Christians, Muslims, Jews were attacked by the other nation. It's Second World War example. The Europe, France was attacked by Hitler and occupied. UK was attacked by Hitler, bombardments and all. Soviet Union was attacked by Hitler and then occupation and then, it's Second World War. Same story is happening now. We are attacked by a fascist regime. We are attacked by the, not humans. They are not humans. What they commit in Ukraine is not human. It's like, it's worse than animals and whatever. We don't have examples in the animals world like that, what they do. And then we are trying to defend ourselves. And then we got some support and some help militarily and like financially and everything. It's absolutely different stories, absolutely different stories.
I'll ask you something. Since you say this cannot end under negotiations, it can only end militarily. Do you think this war is going to continue for years and years? Do we see any end to it in the near future?
Optimistically, I think that the end will be in November or maybe December. Pessimistically, maybe March.
How just militarily you would be able to defeat Russia by November, December, or by March?
We are already defeating them. The point is, we just, we have very limited ability in terms of, if we are told, we are told by our partners, please do not hit the targets on the Russian territory because blah blah blah, nuclear weapons, whatever. Yeah, but if we are given nice weapons, even not in a big quantity, it will be not just military victory, but predominantly it will be psychological victory. They are demoralized, they don't have motivation, they are dying in packs, like hundreds and maybe thousands every day. They don't have a point to fight. So I would say, if you ask me what I would predict, right? And I predict, but how do I assume that it will end? I will not even say that they will be killed in Ukrainian territory. I will say they will run. They will run, and that's
saying it's some of them. A finite time. It's not going to take years and years for this war to just.
Oh no, we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that, and Russia is even less ready for that.
That is hopeful to hear, because the whole world is actually suffering. I mean, I understand Ukrainians are suffering the most, and with them the hunger and a crisis all over the world is building up as well, and everybody wants this war to stop. I'll ask you something. Many countries have rallied behind Ukraine and supported them. Do you feel that there are certain countries and certain actions that could take place which has not happened, which can help in improving the situation? Certain countries could take certain actions that can largely improve it, which they have not taken.
Of course, yes. Many. But I doubt that.
Give me a few examples, because it is important for people to learn that.
Okay. Yes. Few examples. I will give it to you directly, straight ahead. First example: if Belarus stop allowing Russians military orgs to attack Ukraine from Belarus, this will ease the task very much. But now they are doing crazy things, and they will pay for it dearly. I mean, Belarus will pay for this very seriously. We never forgive them, because they are killing our people directly, right?
Maybe second, scared of Russia. They are scared to say no to Russia.
I don't care what they're scared of. I mean, because of Belarus, we have nearly lost the Kiev in the very first days of the war, because we did not expect they hit our back with knife. I don't care what they're scared of. They are cowards, it's their own business, but they are traitors, and they really betrayed us. Betrayed us. And this will not be forgiven. I'm not going to, yeah, I mean, you are afraid of something, it's your problem. Unite with Ukraine, unite with Europe and fight. Second, Iran. Iran will pay dearly for that, for what they did, for selling drones and for providing Russia with that. Iran will pay dearly unless this Ayatollah will be destroyed and, you know, all this revolution will win. Then we will celebrate with the Iranian people the victory over this regime of the terrorists. I would not call another word. To help Russia to give them the drones in this time of war, it's a terrorist. It's nothing, no one else. Third, definitely countries like Kazakhstan, like Georgia, could take measures just not to receive Russians, not to give them asylum when they're running from the. Why Russians are running from Russia? Maybe 1 million of Russians, instead of running to Kazakhstan, maybe they will go to the streets and protest against Putin. Maybe all these million people will be protesting and will be better result than running and hiding and, you know, trying to be like cowards and traitors for the country. So for Kazakhstan, for Georgia, I will not let them in, and I will definitely, well, and when I was like countries like Kazakhstan, isolate the maniac Putin. Don't give him anything, you know, don't give them the free space for movement. Then next one, China, definitely. China can do everything in this world to stop the war. I mean, China could do everything to prevent the war. But I think there was a like silent consent, like, okay, do whatever you want, we don't want to interfere. You know, and many countries can do anything. If you don't want to help militarily, help the human beings. Help the human beings. I mean, if anything happens in any country, like earthquake or a typhoon or, I don't know, the tsunami or the flood, anything, well, immediately we have countries that send some humanitarian aid, like to the people who suffer. Did you see much humanitarian aid from like many countries? I will not name them, but they know clearly. Well, we receive a lot from some countries, but some countries just don't do a thing, just nothing, you know, at all, just talking, you know. So this is the point. If you want to help, you can always help. You not need to be Ukrainian to help Ukraine. You need to be human and just. That's it. Finish. Full stop here.
True. Any thoughts on Elon Musk and his behavior during this time?
You see, I really don't, I'm not in the position to criticize Elon Musk. I didn't analyze this in depth. He helped us. I'm very grateful. He changed his mind. Maybe he is misled. Maybe he is thinking wrong, that this guy could be like persuaded. He doesn't, I mean, you know what? Not many people in the world really understand a thing about Russia. They don't understand. They don't understand. They imagine and they listen what the Russian says. It's like, oh my God, this is such a powerful country, all with nuclear weapons. Look what happened to powerful country now. A small Ukrainian nation, badly equipped, outnumbered. We're killing them all, you know, defeating them. Now they use the tanks of 60s, of 70s. Now you know that the biggest supplier of tanks to Ukrainian army came from Russia, because they just run. Yeah, it's funny, but yeah, that's it. So what, do you still believe this is, remember what they say before, when the first days of war? What? 3 days, Ukraine, what Ukraine? Can you, Ukraine? 3 days, 5 days, finish. Now, maybe you go back and analyze.
Do you
They're
think
talking
you
too
can do
much.
more to fight this information war that is clouding the minds of people like Elon Musk, who are actually in a position to influence this war also? Do you think you need to do more to go out to people and tell them exactly what happened? Especially, he talked about the referendum in those 4 territories, which he backed, which he supported. So do you think Ukraine needs to there are any channels to do this information fight a little bit more?
Oh, this is a good question. I'm perfectly clear what should be done. It's absolutely no problem to defeat the propaganda of Russian Federation, but we need a lot of money for that. Russians spend billions of dollars, billions, not millions, billions of dollars through 20 years, like spreading the cancer of propaganda all over the world, and disguising it under the, you know, the plates or names of like Russian Cultural Center, Russian cooperation. We want peace, we want culture, we want cooperate, we want to be friends. Behind this plates, there are blood and death and terror. And they are doing this, they've been doing this for years, selling oil, doing propaganda. We don't have this money. If I'm given like, I'm not talking about the billions of dollars, give me $10,000 per month, $10,000 per month, or better, $50,000 per month. In no time, I will give me maybe 5 months or 3 months. I will destroy this myth in Indonesia, and all Indonesians, like 90% of Indonesians, will be like very much pro-Ukrainian. I know how to do this, very much, no problem. But I don't have $50,000 monthly. It's very simple. I know what to do. I do a lot. I speak out. I persuade. I meet politicians. I meet leaders of opinions. I meet many people. But this is not enough. Why? You have to win netizens' war. Yeah. The war over netizens is the most important war, because they don't think. They just perceive TikTok. 20 seconds scrolling. Hurrah, Putin, hurrah. And then, this is, yeah, it's simple. But you have to be able to create the content, to spread it, and this requires money. This is very simple. You just tell the truth about Putin, about Kadyrov, about how they treat Muslims, and you will earn the love of Muslims immediately, because everyone will understand Ukrainian treat Muslims as brothers, and he really cares about Muslims. And Russia treat Muslims as like animals and kill them and torture them. This is simple. We can prove this. There's a lot of proofs, but we have to have a team which will make TikTok content, which will translate things from Chechen language into Ukraine, into Bahasa, and we have to, make this, just deliver this to the people. People will listen. Oh my God, is it true? Yes. Check, true. I know how to fight netizens, but I don't have resources.
This is a very important war to fight at the moment, and I understand you are doing a huge thing, and maybe people in individual capacities doing a lot of things, but it also means that the information needs to go to a few very key people in the world who have a lot of clout in terms of influencing things, just as Elon Musk was example. My last question is, please give us a sense of what is really happening in Ukraine now. What is the kind of life that is there for people, and especially as winter is coming, what is the kind of fear that they have, and as the infrastructure for energy and water is being destroyed?
It's a very easy question to answer. In 2 words, the only fear we have is to lose our loved ones. That's why we send majority of women and children left, right? This is the only fear. The other fear we have is to become slaves, or to become to find ourselves under Russian occupation. Because, I mean, one thing is to die when a missile hits your home, you just die, and you will become like, just dead. And another story if you're tortured, raped, and if your children are raped on your eyes and you are tied and you cannot help. This is something that everyone in Ukraine fears. So the worst fear is Russians come to our land and we are under occupation. I could not imagine worse.
And what is the kind of situation now in Ukraine for normal people, their lives? How is it functioning on a day-to-day basis?
Normally, people function normally. I mean, If
Is
you
it
ask me how,
affecting your lives in terms of trade and in terms of economics, in terms of going to school?
look, it's very bad. Economic situation is very bad. But what matters is how people perceive this, how people think about it. Now, people do everything possible to make it move. Who can work, they work. Who can be volunteer, they volunteer. Who can donate, donate. Who can go abroad, work there and generate some cash and bring it to help the people and the army, they do this. But people are ready to, believe me, they are ready to much worse things than they have now, much worse. They are ready to the cold winter without electricity, without central heat. They are ready for that. And it's not, they're not afraid of that. Trust me, just trust me, because I have there's a lot of people living in Ukraine. My family is still there, like, you know, my mother and all the rest, friends and relatives. They say, okay, we can manage this. It's not like the first time, we can do this. In 1990s, it was very bad, but we survived it. Like, you know, we have worse fear. Worst fear is to Russians come to liberate us. This is the worst we can imagine. So we'd better be patient. No problem with this electricity. We will work. We have the electric stations hit. We will try to repair. We will deliver a bit of electricity every day. It's okay. We will learn how to fight the drones. We will learn how to fight the missiles. It's also okay. What is not okay is that our people are still under occupation. This is not okay. So what we have in my people is hope and rage towards Russians. That's it. Very simple. All people feel like that. Okay, 99%. So can you imagine these people will persuade president to surrender and to negotiate? People don't want this. They don't want to negotiate with. I mean, if today president of Ukraine says that I will go to Bali and I sit down on the table with Putin and start negotiating on whatever conditions just to stop the war, he will be dismissed the very same day. People will go to the street and say, we don't want you. It's not our president who says things like that. We people of Ukraine don't want this. We want our land back. We want our loved ones back. We want to live normal life. And to live normal life, we have to defeat Russia. Otherwise, it will be a threat, like a Damocles sword over you for years and generations. That's what we don't want.
Very inspiring story. And I have had to ask questions which were required because they are questions in people's minds. But I'll have to say, on a personal note, Ukraine's story has inspired me a lot, and I learned a lot about what countries can do in the face of a crisis. Last point, would you like to say something to the rest of the world in terms of a message?
It's hard to address the world, but I would repeat just one thing, maybe two things. Don't be afraid of your enemies. The worst they can do is to kill you. Don't be afraid of your friends. The worst they can do is to betray you. Be afraid of indifferent people, because it's because of the silent consent the worst crime in history are being committed. Don't be indifferent. Be human, be just, and try to think critically using the facts.
Wonderful line. Vasyl, always a great pleasure to talk to you. This was
Thank you.
A very inspiring and very eye-opening conversation that I had with you, and really a delight to listen to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best, and yeah, hopefully see you next time. I'm sure that if we have the next conversation, having the same pause, like of what, 5 months, next conversation will be with a glass of wine, drinking for our victory. No doubts about that.
Really look forward to that. Really look forward to that. Have a very fearless and a delightful journey in spite of your crisis. May you have a delightful journey ahead. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава і смерть ворогам. Thank you.
Thank you.